Employment in South Africa grew at the annualized rate of 6.8% for the month of March. That outstripped growth in the previous 2 months. That's according to the latest instalment of the Adcorp Employment Index. Now, for an analysis on the figures and a closer look into the labour industry, we're joined by Michael Bagraim, who is labour law specialist at Bagraim Attorneys. Hi, Michael, coming to us from Cape Town.
Hi, thank you for inviting me onto the show. I really appreciate it.
Perhaps you'd like to kick off...
In essence...
Yeah, sorry, I think
I certainly can.
To kick off with, these numbers are always interesting. Adcorp puts them out, regularly, monthly, and there's some controversy. There was a spat with Stats SA about whether these numbers were the right one. But they're interesting, and a lot of people use them at least as a guide, perhaps not as the only one. Why are they useful to someone like you?
Well, what we are is that we are labour attorneys here in Cape Town, and we deal with just over 1,000 companies. In essence, we use these figures on a regular basis. We get involved in wage negotiations, we get involved in all sorts of discussions with the trade unions, and in particular we're advising businesses on how to move forward and how to conduct themselves in the wage relations area. Industrial relations is a difficult area, and of course these figures are often attacked by all sorts of people, especially by COSATU. Our problem is, and we've experienced it on many occasions, is that we're not getting reliable figures from anyone, and Adcorp is as close as damn it to it. And in fact, it's reflecting the situation that we normally deal with. So it's a good set of figures. I know that Mark Twain says that you have lies, damn lies, and then statistics, but at least this does help us, and it's practical information which helps us on the ground. Well,
Lone Sharp, who represents Adcorp and usually talks about these numbers, he was saying that in many cases they do use Stats SA's own numbers, so that controversy is there. But they are useful, and you say you advise your clients. What are you advising them, or going to advise them, as a result of these numbers?
Well, these numbers are interesting in that we've got a bit of a pickup of the employment statistics at the moment. Obviously, all of us know that skills in South Africa is a real problem. In fact, a lot of my clients have to import people to import those skills. But these are quite interesting, and it is reflective of what's actually happening on the ground, because we have, say, about 1,000 companies on our books at Bagraim Attorneys, and these figures are reflecting, in fact, what we're hearing from the factories, from the manufacturers, from a lot of the industry out there here in the Cape. We're actually seeing these figures from them. So what we're doing is we're advising the clients that they can actually temper some of the wage offers, especially the skilled people. The wage negotiations are enhanced by some of this we're seeing from Lone Sharp. We thank him for that, because it does help us in our negotiations with the union. We're just about to go into the negotiation season, the wage negotiation season, and we're expecting 2012 to be a year of enormous strikes, because these figures are telling us that we're actually going to offer less. We're going to be getting closer to the inflationary figures as opposed to the double-digit figures that we gave last year. So we are expecting the strikes, and I think these figures will help us in our negotiations. There's very little to go on out there, and what we're getting from Statistics SA somehow isn't that practical, and I thank Adcorp for doing this for us.
Michael Wania, in fact, you covered on part of the question I was going to ask, the questions I was going to ask. The first question is a bit tongue-in-cheek. Why do people like negotiating wages in winter? I can't understand that, but let's put that aside. Now, the government faces the biggest challenge of all, because government wage growth has been double-digit. In fact, I heard a statistic that municipal wage growth has been 14% compound 3 years in a row, which is frightening. Now, in the government's medium-term budget framework, or this year's budget, the Minister of Finance said 7% growth in the total government's wage bill in total. That's new hiring, salary increases, everything, capped at 7. What's coming? Is this going to be the genuine winter of discontent?
It certainly is, and thank you for that, because it's been an issue that's been bothering, and I know it's certainly been bothering the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we've put out, from the Chamber of Commerce, we've put out press releases about this, because if government actually has the guts to tell the trade unions no for the first time in years, I'd be quite surprised. And it certainly will be a winter of discontent, because even if government says, all right, we'll go beyond the 7% and we'll go to 9%, which will be shock and horror for most of us in South Africa. If they go to the 9%, the unions won't accept it. They are, in fact, building up themselves, and I think they're looking at a 13% increase, the trade union movement. And you can understand it, because we were held to ransom over the soccer in 2010, if you remember. And because of that, and because of those double-digit inflationary figures we saw then, we saw high demands last year, and we once again didn't have the guts to say no.
Vickers?
It seems to me that we're skipping over some very good news, actually quite lively. What we're seeing there in terms of the actual numbers that Adcorp have put out is that jobs are growing much faster than the economy at the moment. Now, we've seen for a couple of years that it was the other way around. The economy started growing, but jobs didn't grow.
In fact, there was jobless growth.
In fact, so what we're seeing is growthless jobs to some extent now. So we're seeing catch up in the labour market, and that's actually fantastic news. And it also means that business out there thinks that labour is reasonable value for money. So at the current rates, businesses are hiring, and that's fantastic news.
I've got another question for Michael there, and that is Loan Sharp in his statement of those numbers. He talked about a lot of the issues in trade union politics and activities at the moment, whether it's the way they behave, the length of the strikes, when they strike, the militancy and so on, is to do with declining membership. He pulled all these things together and he said it's not only South Africa, it's a defensive strategy.
It's a worldwide, it is a worldwide trend. And what I've noticed is, in fact, a lot of it is politics and not actually anything to do with the wage negotiations. The reality of the situation is that a lot of the unions go out on strike, and they're supported by 2 or 3% of the union members. And who comes out to march? 3%, yes, maximum of the staff in particular factories come out to march. The support has been absolutely minimal for the strikes. So one asks the question, and it begs the question, who is pushing these strikes? Is it the union themselves, the union officials and the union organisers, as opposed to the actual staff on the ground? And I think our Minister of Labour has got an answer for this, because she's now pushed in the latest proposed amendments, she's pushed back to the ballot system, where you're going to have the secret ballot. Now, yes, there are problems with secret ballots, because people can still be bullied, but at least it's secret, and at least people will be asked their opinion. And I think we're going to see less strikes because of that. Of course, the union movement's going to be completely angry when they see these figures coming through, where the government is offering 7%. I think they might get pushed to the 9%, and there's going to be a lot of crying about that. But I think the private sector has not got the stomach to go much beyond the 7%. And I believe that most of the bargaining councils have also got their hearts set on the 7% as well. So it is going to be a winter of discontent on the one hand, and on the other hand, hopefully if our minister can get that amendment through as quickly as possible, we're going to see people starting to ballot.